I'm sorry.
What's your name?
Shawn Windsor.
You know who I am?
Yes, sir.
So you know I'm looking for
Podcasters.
Yes, sir.
Just do your best. You're here for a reason. You believe that, right?
I'm here for a reason.
Little trouble there. You're rushing. Ready? Okay. 5, 6, and. Were you rushing or were you dragging?
I don't know.
If you deliberately sabotage my
Podcast.
I will gut you like a pig.
Oh, my dear God. Are you one of those single-tier people?
You asked it around, get your finger out of my face. It's gone.
What are you doing? Come on. That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now?
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elric. And now that Shawn and Mark are done talking about the Lions and double tapers, it's time to get to the good stuff. And we're going to find out whether Shawn's a one-tier type of guy or whether he's going to let the waterworks flow, because this is a big day. I understand that the future of the world depends on what happens today, it being Election Day here in the U.S. of A. How you feeling, guys? You think we're going to have rioting in the streets, or are we going to be up all night trying to figure out what the hell happened?
Neither. I mean, today, neither.
It's bright here in the studio.
Yeah, is it better?
What's different? Is it?
I changed a little bit of lighting. Do you like it? Do you approve? You're like the only person that's noticed that, by the way.
No, it's nice. I like it.
We have that non sequitur drop they used to use with Tom Mazaway ready. Can we get that on heavy repeat? Put that in heavy
For that guy?
rotation.
What, a non sequitur assumes that what you were saying mattered. You know what I mean?
Does it, though?
I think I may be the one-tier guy today. I'm already starting.
No. Normally what you say does matter, but
I'm already starting to
I didn't
well
think we
up.
were going to talk about the election, and so I was just observing what's happening in the studio.
Well, this is
in a lovely
something.
space with my buddies.
To some extent, this is a chance for us to memorialize some predictions. I think before the big debate, you may remember I predicted that at some point Kamala Harris was going to say, "I'm talking now." And I was half right because Trump said it because he was trying to preempt her from saying, "I'm talking now," which when I look back on great predictions, that's got to be right up there with.
I like how you made it about you. That's pretty cool.
Well, my name is kind of on the show.
Are you gonna have to cover? Are you gonna have to do election coverage?
I will be there. My bold prediction for this election, by the way, is that Michigan's vote count will be done much sooner than anybody expects, which means it could be done tonight.
So we're back to the election. Okay. Just checking my notes here.
You're so bummed.
Just
Those of you who have subscribed
checking the notes
to Patreon who are giving us $5 a month, which doesn't include Tom or Tim. We're going to talk about that doorknob later in the show, but I think you can see the expression on my face.
What?
That says it all.
By the way,
and you can also see how the lighting is affecting Shawn's dome, which is now glowing like the Capitol at night.
It is. By the way, can we just applaud the great Mark Fallheier with his introductions every week?
Wasn't the best one.
No, that was really fun. By the way,
they are genius the way they're done. I mean, the way they're written and everything. The editing's a little sloppy, but the conception, the writing is just. It's the
Thanks for contributing one in the last 3 weeks.
The plan is genius. The execution, you know.
No, I know it's everything.
Mark, can I ask you something?
What?
Are you a rusher or are you a dragger?
But don't you love J.K. Simon? Sorry, Mark, where he says, what did he say? Not quite. He said a little trouble here, and it doesn't sound that menacing at first when he says a little trouble here, like he's going to be.
He builds throughout the movie of Whiplash.
Exactly.
Did you like that movie?
I like the last scene when Paul Reiser's looking through the curtains on the side of the stage and sees that his son has spectacular talent. That moment of recognition as a parent with your child. That's my favorite moment.
I think
in
that
the
movie is so overrated. No.
What about you, Mikey?
I have not seen it, but I really, after you guys were talking about it, and of course, J.K. Simmons is a Detroiter, so I'm always interested in that. He's also a kind of journalist because he used to be the editor of the Daily Bugle. What was it when he was J. Jonah Jameson?
Yeah.
Where he was Spider-Man's boss.
Spider-Man, I'm sorry. Yeah.
A similar boss, too. He's like, "These are garbage. Get out of here." Remember how every time Peter Parker would come in here with these exclusive pictures, like, these are trash, I'll give you $5 for them. He's like, I could really use 10. He's like, 7, don't come back. It's like, okay.
Just like the real world.
Well, the Detroit Newspaper Guild is in negotiations with the owners of the News and the Free Press.
Really?
And I will tell you that we've had similar responses from our bosses. You're lucky you have a job.
Oh, jeez.
Are you in on that?
I am on the bargaining team.
Good for you.
What aren't you involved in?
Producing a quality podcast.
That's for certain.
I have aspirations.
Your tie's a little askew there, by the way. You might
It is.
wanna
I've been
fix
trying
that.
to adjust it as $5 Patreon subscribers would note. I don't think that's worth your fin, but you know why? Because when you look on yourself on the camera, it's all reverse. So when you pull to the left, it's going to the right. It's a lot like elections. Are you guys fed up with the text? Are you getting a lot of texts?
Tons.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm getting fed up with them.
What about in your mailbox, all the placards?
I'm not getting as many of those, believe it or not, but tons of text. And you know, I oddly do not mind political commercials on TV. I laugh at almost all of them now. I mean, there's so much redundancy in them. You see them all. But I kind of enjoy them in an odd sort of way because I know they're going to be gone by a certain date.
Well, you know who really likes them is the TV stations because they are making
radio too
so much money. And as I understand, now this podcast does not accept political advertisements of any kind. We also don't take advertisements from government entities because we want to be completely and utterly unbeholden to anybody or even the perception that we're in the bag for somebody. But when the political ads get paid out, I think they get paid out at like the highest rate possible, isn't it? Don't they pay a premium for those ads?
We don't take
They
ads.
do.
We don't take ad money from the government. Not even like NASA. We wouldn't take money from them.
I don't think we take money from. Now we may take something from like the Michigan Department of Public Health or something, but I don't know. That's all done by an agency.
So. I think it's all part of
But we can set our preferences, and we do not take political ads, and we also for the sponsors, the ones that we read, we can turn people away. That would be a nice problem to have someday, but we don't accept money from anybody that would cause you to have a reason to believe that we are not being completely and utterly genuine. And I should also say in the I hate having to do cleanup like this, but in the notion of being completely transparent, last week we were talking about endorsements, and I was saying that I don't think newspapers should be in the endorsement business, and Shawn agreed with me. That very day that the show posted, it was announced on Deadline Detroit that Gannett, which owns the Detroit Free Press, is not endorsing in the presidential race, and I made a comment on the record to
just
Deadline
the presidential,
Detroit about that.
just the presidential,
just the presidential.
Yeah, right.
So I disagree with that policy as well. Just don't endorse at all. But it ended up ruffling some feathers back at the office, and I'm sorry for my colleagues who were upset by any of my comments.
Why were they upset?
What happened?
I did not know that this decision had been made at Gannett at the time that I made my comments saying we shouldn't be in the endorsement business anyway. So I absolutely was not running interference for Gannett. And in fact, it's my understanding that Gannett didn't appreciate my comments. So there's that. So if I was running interference, I did it very poorly. So I assure you that I was not.
I'm sorry that happened. Actually, that's not cool.
Is Shawn's camera frozen, or
That's
is
why I'm
he
laughing, 'cause I
just in
couldn't-
stasis?
Good.
I'm
Just leave it like that.
I'm just gonna say,
Kind of looks like Han Solo in Carbonite
While you were
without being really handsome and desirable and a spice pirate.
I was
gonna
trying to
nobody's
fix
ever
it.
compared me to Han Solo.
I was trying to fix it while you were talking, and the thing obviously didn't work, but I couldn't tell if he was just sitting still.
It's like I'm getting the gas
couldn't-
face.
Like, I feel like you're still doing that same face that's frozen on the screen.
No, sometimes an expression captures someone's character. This is Shawn's Kayla Mulroney photo where Shawn is not amused. Can you see this, Shawn?
You can see
I
it.
can see it. No. Yeah, no, I'm not unhappy there at all.
I love it. I think it looks great. Why were you in Iron Mountain, by the way?
Oh, Lions-Packers. Covered the Lions-Packers game. I was a bit of a last-minute ad. Sometimes this happens, with
Wait, were you
editors.
staying in Iron Mountain? Have we cut our travel expenses so
Yeah, that's what
deeply
I
that
couldn't-
you're
Iron Mountain's not
commuting
near-
to
it's
Green
not-
Bay from
yeah.
Iron Mountain on a skiff?
I
Are you
did.
taking the Kon-Tiki across Lake Superior?
I did stay in Iron Mountain for a couple nights.
How far away is that?
Hour and 45 minutes.
Was that by
Lambeau.
choice or just because
No, it was by choice because I don't know if we talked about this in the pod
you
before.
want to get a skillet while you were out there?
No, I think we had. But last year, this is when it sort of became an issue for those of us that travel with to cover the Lions in the media around here, because so many Lions fans started going. Delta jacked up the prices, right? So, and normally, I don't want to get too much inside baseball here, but we kind of divvy up the football schedule mostly ahead of time. But then things happen, and the trade deadline was coming, and Jameson Williams was out, and it's a divisional rival and an afternoon game, primetime game. So we just thought that's a really big game. And the editor said, "Do you want to go too?" But this was just last week. I want to say it was just last week. They said, "Hey, see if you can go, if you can find a reasonable way there." Well, Green Bay was, I don't know, $1,400 And so, and I looked at Milwaukee, which I've done before, and that was, not cheap either. And that's actually a little further. And on a lark, I thought, you know what? I remember flying to Green Bay one time and driving to Ishpeming for a high school story. I was up there for a few days doing a long feature. And I thought, let me look around. And so I looked at Escanaba, Marquette, and Iron Mountain.
Traverse City?
Iron Mountain popped up. No, that's a little too far.
Too far, okay.
Iron Mountain popped up. It was 200. I hate to say this because I don't want to give Lions fans, I don't want to steal the
you're gonna lose your seat.
secret path. However, my flight was full of Lions fans, but it was $290 round trip
To Iron Mountain, Michigan?
to Iron Mountain, Michigan, with like 5 days lead time, 6 days, 7 days lead, something like that.
What did you guys travel in the Sopwith Camel? I mean, that can't be a big plane going into Iron Mountain.
It was
a big runway.
CRJ. And it was a late flight, and I went to the Michigan-Oregon game.
I wish Mike
Wrote a
was here to
column.
translate that. What kind of plane is that?
It's 2 rows on each side, small. I don't know, 25 rows. Something
Jet
like that.
propeller?
No, it's a jet. It's a Delta regional jet. And I went to Michigan, Oregon, and filed, and then had to find my way out of the traffic and get to Metro. It was like a 10 o'clock flight,
Like Phil Collins at Live Aid.
and had to get there. So coming in though, that's one thing that's interesting when you go into small airports, right? You're not in a metro area,
Yeah.
So you're at night. You're coming in. It's dark. You can't see anything. It's like, where's the runway? Finally, it's like coming out of fog or something. You don't see it until you're right on top of it. And it's like a cabin. It was a lodge. The terminal. It was great.
Why didn't you just drive?
Because that's a haul, and there was no time for that.
8 hours? I mean, how long does it take to drive to the airport and wait and then fly and then drive another hour and a half?
No, I flew. It was a 50-minute flight or so. Landed, stayed right there in Iron Mountain, and then got up in the morning, had some Scandinavian breakfast, and then drove to Green Bay. It was great.
Is that Kippers, or what would you have?
The Panacaco, or what? I'm
Lutefisk?
butchering that. I'm sure it's like a Swedish pancake. Yeah, delicious.
Well, we know about you and the nude Swedes.
That's Izzo's hometown, right?
Yeah, Mariucci, right?
They just had a big basketball game there. Michigan State played Northern Michigan, I think, to raise some money for Izzo's Hall of Fame. And I think he may have had his number retired or been inducted in their Hall of Fame. Yeah, he and Mariucci played football there together. And I think, I don't know if Mariucci played basketball, but Izzo played basketball for Northern Michigan University. He's a proud Wildcat.
I'm not allowed to go
Why not?
to Iron Mountain because in high school in 1991, our team beat Iron Mountain North Dickinson in the state championship game.
What sport? Football?
Basketball.
There are that many people, and they have a North and a South Dickinson. I would have thought Dickinson would be enough there.
I don't know why it was called that. I don't know nothing about it. I'm not allowed to go up there. And their principal and mayor, I guess, were at the game, and they were so appalled by our fans that they said we are not welcome in Iron Mountain. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm never going to Iron Mountain.
So it wasn't you specifically?
No, it wasn't me specifically, but anybody that went
there. You went up there taking a baseball bat to mailboxes out of your Chevy.
No, we were uninvited to go to Iron Mountain.
Now, were you on the team, or were you like a super booster?
I was just a fan. I was just a kid, man. I was a freshman.
That's one hell of a road
trip.
He
revoked my belief, any chance I had to ever go to Iron Mountain.
So you need to go to Iron Mountain.
No, I'm not allowed to.
Set this right.
If he doesn't want me there, I don't want to go.
You need to go set this right.
But you're okay in the rest of the UP, right?
You know what?
Because you stayed in the UP, I believe.
I was raised in Michigan, lived here my whole life, and I never went to the UP until last year. Just never did.
Yeah, but you stayed in like a super cool place, as I recall, like a train depot, wasn't it?
Yeah, up in Munising. No, not Munising. Up in
Menominee.
Yes. How did you know that?
Because I figured you were thinking of M's.
Yeah. I think that's where it was, outside of
I know you.
Marquette.
I see you.
You're stalking me?
I hear you. I
No,
see
and
you.
I never had ever wanted to go to the UP, and then we decided to do a family trip up there, and it is one of my favorite places that we've ever gone. It's awesome. And the weather's nice.
Marquette's great.
Marquette is a great city.
No,
It's
Marquette's
so
fabulous.
much fun.
I like Houghton Hancock. I was up there for a week one time to write about snow. It was fun.
Wrote about snow.
That's all. Yeah, that was the assignment. This is a different era. Me and a photographer were sent up there for a week because they get 300 plus inches of snow. More so, it's the snowiest place in America east of the Rockies. And my editor at the time said, go up there and live there for a week. We stayed in a little bed and breakfast in somebody's house.
Did you like it?
They made this. They made the.
Sounds like
Panacotta.
Brokeback Mountain. Was it fun?
Yeah, it was.
Did you go up there with a deranged gal? Do you still keep in touch from time to time?
No, I don't remember anybody being deranged.
Oh, okay. I don't know. That's
Have you guys ever had like an assignment that you just really did not want to do, but reluctantly went, and you were kind of maybe justified in not wanting to do it, like something like that, like being sent to cover snow and live in a really snowy area for a week?
I thought that was actually really a
No,
great
I know, but
assignment.
I'm wondering, was there something that you didn't want to do?
God, that's such a good question, because when I was, early in my career, I loved traveling because I got to go different places on the company's dime. But then you get to a certain point and they're like, well, you're one of our heavy hitters, so we really want you to go to this disaster area. Like, disaster area?
Yeah.
I don't think I want to go there. And now I've gotten to a point where with everything that I have going on and with, my kids, if they say like, we want you to go cover the World Series, I'm like, I don't really want to go. I don't really want to go do that, because when you travel, and Shawn, I mean, I think you've heard this, folks,
my
over the
God,
years, the toll it takes on him. When he started this show, the man had an afro, and now look at him. He's gleaming.
I don't know if I had an afro.
Well, it was cornrows.
Do you still like doing that,
You're
Sean?
culturally appropriate, but when you go on the road, here's the thing: you have to come back with something, and there's great expense, there's great expectation. They're expecting a big story. So when you go on the road, typically you are working your ass off the whole time you are there, because you're like, if I come back with nothing, then they'll either never send me again, or I'll be a failure, or there's some personal pride, there's some fear of recrimination.
Was
It's
there
a
ever
lot
a
of
time-
pressure.
That's more true in sports. I mean, in news than sports. It's much more defined.
You always have a game, right? But
It's
you have
much
to
more
think of something to
defined
write
in
about
sports,
it.
yeah.
But you're not writing about who won and lost. That's usually the beat writer. You've got to go a little deeper, and you may have this great story about, Freddie Freeman, he shouldn't even be playing because he's hurt, and you've written the whole column, and then he hits a grand slam in the last at-bat. You're like, I better spike that and come up with Freddie Freeman, the hero. That's hard.
When I was younger, I would venture out a little bit more, or especially with food, restaurants, or just go. I remember the first time I went to Denver for work. I went to what's the famous Red Rock?
The amphitheater?
The amphitheater. I just drove out there one morning and walked around. That was cool. I used to do stuff like that all the time, and especially seek out places I wanted to eat, local, regional specialties. And I don't do that so much anymore. My favorite part these days is when I'm someplace where I've got family or friends.
Sure.
I like that a lot.
Have you ever started a column before a game ended and then something happened and you had to scrap it?
Oh yeah,
Like what?
yeah. I mean that happens all the time. Sometimes you have two different tops. I mean, just right.
So the idea is formulating while the game's going on?
Yeah, you kind of think. I mean,
So like when Branch got kicked out, you're like, oh, this is one of the best safeties, and then Kirby Joseph returns that.
well, no, because that
interception, and now you're like,
that
oh, wow.
that wasn't my immediate deadline column. I mean,
Okay.
I did mention that. It
was a good column, and you're right. They probably are the best safeties.
But that was my second column. So at the Free Press, as columnists, you have to, for big games, you have to file when the game's over. You have to file a column, which is not.
That's hard. I think that's
It's
a lot
actually-
harder than people.
It's actually
think.
really difficult to have something to say on deadline is tricky. And then we go down to the locker room, clubhouse, whatever it may be, and you talk to the players and coaches, and then you write another column that won't get printed, like that instant column, which is what we call it, goes up digitally right away as soon as the editors can look at it and put it up.
Does that get devoured like crazy because people are?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want immediate reactions to the game.
It does. We learned this several years ago. We started doing this, and then sort of to Mike's point, to justify the expense, then you write a second column. Sunday night, I had almost a 2-hour drive in the rain on a country road in the dark, and I was tired, and so I called the desk and said, "I'm going to make this drive now and then write this second column." Fortunately, one of the editors likes to edit at 3 a.m.
Oh, good.
So I wrote till, I don't know, 1 a.m. or whatever, and it filed from the hotel room back in Iron Mountain, the second column.
Wow, that's the one about the safeties, yeah.
And Mike's right. That kind of stuff will start wearing you out.
But the way it used to work, and Shawn, correct me if I'm wrong, I know I don't need to tell you that, but when we had an early edition of the newspaper, you'd write a story, a sports story, for the UP, for the outstate edition of the Free Press that no one would ever see. It had no results, nothing.
Ahead of time, yeah.
It because the presses would roll before the first pitch, so you'd have some Tiger thing. It might be about how Jim Whalewander became a big fan of the Dead Milkmen, and it'd be a nice little story. And then it would go up there, and then no one would ever see it because we didn't have online then. So if you lived in Iron Mountain, you'd see a story about Jim Whalewander and the Dead Milkmen, but you'd see nothing about the Tiger game. And if you got the whatever is the 3 dot or the 4 dot or whatever is the very last edition that would go only to homes in Detroit, and they would update it when they put the last roll of paper on the press, you'd get the game score and everything else, but you wouldn't get the Jim Whalewander story, or maybe you'd get the next. I mean, it was the way online has changed our business. You know, you're writing just as much, or maybe even more, but we used to tailor, you know, our workflow and the actual content for different areas of the state so that somebody who couldn't get the game results would get something about the Tigers because we know there's interest. And
can I ask a really stupid question?
Crazy.
How did you file before internet and email and all that?
Get me rewrite.
What is that? I don't know what that is.
You'd pick up a payphone. You'd say, and this happened when I was in college. I was sent to cover Louis Farrakhan at the MSU auditorium, and I was a student. And they said, "Okay, go and listen." And there was some reporter who just said, "Okay, what did he say?" He said, "Well, he said the Jews are evil." It's like, "Okay, did he say anything about women?" He said, "Well, he said that women are to be protected." It's like, "Okay, what else did he say? Did he say anything about the fruit of Islam?" It's like, "Well, he said the fruit of Islam were, they were the true choices of Allah or whatever." Say, "Okay," and he'd say, "All right," and then he'd turn it into a story. So that would happen. They were rewrite men, and they almost always were men, where you just call in and say, "What happened today?" And they'd tell you. And then they'd write something up which may or may not be accurate. Maybe in a crowded auditorium where tensions were high, Louis Farrakhan spoke to an audience of students, some of whom were Jewish, where he accused the Jews of manipulating them and then said that women should be obedient to their men, and the fruit of Islam were the epitome of masculinity. And you'd read it the next day and be like, "Wow, that was really good." And I was there. I didn't know it was that good, So that kind of shit would happen. I mean, it's like in the movie Airplane where they have the press conference and they all go running into the phone booth and the phone booths fall over. Yeah. Except they would have people who would fight to hold a phone. You'd have like a newsroom clerk who reserves a payphone for you so that when you ran over it, they'd say, "Here it is." Just like at games, and this was as recently as the late 80s and the 90s, we'd have people who were runners who would take the photographer's film from the sidelines, run it up to a lab, process it, and then transmit the photos on something that, looked like a fax machine. Hunter S. Thompson used to call it the Mojo wire, but it was basically something that would scan it, turn it into beeps and chirps, and put it over a phone line to something out the other end. And it was pretty wild. In a way, it's not that different than what we do now, except it was much slower, and the product wasn't quite as HD as it is now.
So I used to write on a notepad, handwrite, and then go find a payphone because there were no cell phones.
Yeah,
and call it
Just
in,
read
and
it,
read it, and then of course they would clean it up. But yeah, I did that with high school sports. That was my first job at the Free Press back in the early '90s.
Did you write about how
Gene Myers, the
Iron
great
Mountain
Gene Myers,
uninvited us? That would have been a good story.
We probably had laptops back then, but
91.
or you'd use the
they-
coupler.
they
Did
were-
you ever use the coupler, Sean?
No, they were the little Tandy laptops, but I was a stringer, and so I didn't get one. So I had to write by hand and then call and dictate it in.
Wow.
So you could get these phone couplers. There was two rubber things, and you'd put a phone on it.
I've seen those.
And you'd get the handshake, and you're like, yeah, and it would connect.
Like the modem sound, the old modem sound.
Yeah, but the problem is that if you did it with a payphone, you usually had to dial in, and you usually, if it was long distance, if you didn't have a bunch of coins, you'd have to use like an MCI calling card, and then you'd have to get the dial sequence right. And I didn't know one time that the way to make it hesitate when it's saying press 4, and you don't know how to do that because you can't hear because it's all coupled up, you'd put commas in there to pause it so it would wait and do the dialing sequence. And I wrestled with this for so long that me and my friends missed a Husker Du show in Boston, and I had to buy them all beer. So
the horror.
or maybe it was Bob. It may have been Bob Mold. But
Mark, my first staff job, when I got my first staff job at a newspaper, this was in Alabama, it came with a calling card, that looked like a credit card, right?
Yeah, for the payphone.
Yeah, because
weird.
when you'd go out, you'd have to make calls, and there were no cell phones, so it was MCI maybe.
yeah, MCI was one of them. That's a big one.
The Free Press actually might have had something similar when I started.
Well, a lot of the bigger newspapers have an 800 number that you call in, but you still have to, do like a dialing sequence so that it can connect to the right extension and all that.
Well, no, but also when you were out reporting and you're in a hotel or whatever, they didn't want you to use, because it was so expensive to dial out of the hotel and make a call, even a local call. Like if I were in Montgomery, Alabama doing something, and my newspaper was in Huntsville, if you called out of a hotel, remember how expensive that was? Oh, yeah. So, or let alone making a long distance call from a hotel or whatever, or a payphone. So it wasn't just calling back to the paper. You got these phone cards because they wanted you to use the plane because it was cheaper that way.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's so weird to think back now.
It was very crazy.
Elric, did you ever have a time when they sent you on assignment and you just could not come up with anything, or you really struggled to come up with something?
Well, you're bringing all these threads together. I was backpacking in Europe after my internship at the Free Press.
For sure.
And there was...
as soon as he said that, Sean, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a long one.
Yeah. Well, so this was right after the Gulf War, the line in the sand, and George H.W. Bush. And so there, obviously, there's a big Chaldean community.
Were you covering Bush?
No, I was, I was seeking some, but I was.
God. Was your tie askew? Was that part of the charm?
No, I was traveling a little lighter, but I was.
You just had a tie on and no shirt. That's a good look. I remember that from the 80s.
Yeah, so you want this to be over fast, but you're dragging it up.
We're making it fun, sorry.
So there's a big Chaldean community in Michigan, and so they were contacting the Free Press and saying a lot of our relatives can't get home. We want them to get home. So I was in Athens, which is a big first stop for people coming from the Middle East, because there's a big UN refugee center and everything. And so I was looking for people who had ties to Michigan who couldn't get home to Michigan. And I looked everywhere. I mean, I beat the bushes. I talked to everybody. I mean, I worked harder than I probably ever worked on a story.
You learned Greek?
No. And I didn't, I found lots of Iraqis trying to get home, but they were stuck from the Iran-Iraq war because there's such a lag getting through the mountains and across through Turkey and all this other stuff. And I had to file a story, and I actually, by the time I had all my notes together, I filed the story from the AP bureau in Belgrade, in what was then Yugoslavia before that dissolved into civil war. And the Free Press was like, thanks, that's not really what we're looking for. So they paid me a kill fee, but at the same time I was working on it, I extended my stay in Athens, and they put me up in a hotel, and the international phone charges were insane. In fact, I ran up a massive bill because I was calling people at home saying, I can't get the story. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I was so despondent that I was literally thinking of killing myself. I was thinking of hanging myself in this hotel room in Athens because I thought this was a big opportunity, and I totally blew it, and I ran up all these charges, and the newspaper was going to say, well, this asshole couldn't deliver, costs us a fortune, we'll never hire him, we'll put the word out. And I had a colleague who said, you know what, I'm really worried about you, I think that this is dangerous. Just make somebody up.
What? Really?
Yeah, because she thought I was going to kill myself. She said, just make somebody up. Send that in. That's better than you dying. And that kind of was like a wake-up call to me where I said, okay, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
And then I went to go see the hotel manager. Can we do something about some of these charges? And in the end, everything was fine. It was actually a good story. They didn't run
how
it,
old were you?
I would have been 23.
Yeah. Isn't that funny with age, how you realize that some things just aren't that important?
Well, that's
Or
the other thing.
let me rephrase it, not as big of a deal as you make them out to be when you're 20, 21, 22, 23.
Yeah, well, because every failure you have is one of hopefully a very small number, and it seems outsized. But yeah, obviously things have worked out okay for me. But that was an assignment where it was horrible. I mean, it was because of my own expectations, the most dangerous assignment I've ever been on in my life. But I will tell you, all the Iraqis that I hung out with in Athens, the greatest, the nicest, the most hospitable people ever. If you went over to visit them and they had 2 beers in the fridge and there were 3 of you, you got the beer and one of them didn't. I mean, they were amazing people, and I hope they all made it over here. But yeah, that was a tough assignment. I'll never forget that one because I try and tell my students about that. It's like, folks, it's not as big a deal as you think.
The pressure that I always felt was when something was spectacular or really moving or really, really compelling. You're like, well, I'm a loser. How the heck am I going to capture this and relay this and make my trip here? Right. I would struggle with that. Like, what am I doing here?
Well, you need the big call, right? You know, like, do you believe in miracles? Yes.
No, I don't even didn't mean with just sports.
Oh, okay, sorry.
When I was news side, like when have I talked about this in the show before? When the World War II vets, I think over in Crete, fixed
Of course
up
you did.
Did I talk about that?
Of course you did. No, I'm just trying to make it interesting.
No, did I? Did I talk about that?
What a jerk.
Sorry. No, please do.
It doesn't ring a bell. But
I can wait till the end of a story. I'm patient.
A bunch of World War II vets went over who had served. Obviously, if they're vets, right? They've gone to Crete, and this old ship they restored. They spent like 2 years to make it seaworthy, and then they traveled as 80-year-olds across the Atlantic, and came into, this is like in the early 2000s. One of the first stories I had at the Free Press, and they came into Mobile Bay, and I got out on a tugboat with a photographer and a few others to welcome this, and there were thousands of people that were lining welcoming these folks had taken this journey 50 years later, or whatever. And the sun's creeping up, and it was an amazing scene. And I'm like, what am I doing here?
You're observing, though.
What
You're reporting.
No. I yeah, but how am I going to capture this? How am I? Do I even belong at the Free Press? I used to struggle with that.
Imposter syndrome.
Exactly. Yeah. That was the pressure that I felt. I don't know that Mike probably ever felt that, but yeah, no, I struggle with that all the time.
He always knew he belonged.
Well, I say it's a friendly fire there. Go ahead. It's a stray shell from that restored ship.
That story up in the Keweenaw Peninsula about the snow. I remember being in the office of a poet at what's the university there? Is it Northern Michigan? No, that's Marquette. What's the university in Michigan Tech? Michigan Tech. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting in the liberal arts, and this guy was a teacher of poetry, and there's so much snow for times of the year that they the way they have to remove it just to survive and drive. And he said that we're covetous of each other's space. Like if somebody's figured out how to get snow out, it's almost like when you have a garbage can that's overflowing, or you have room and your neighbor wants to bring the garbage over because they're over. So they're trying to figure out what to do with all this snow. And I just remember the poetry of all that. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. So. It worked out, though.
Is it over now?
Yeah.
I'm covetous of my time. Before we go,
he's wounded. Isn't he wounded? He's never had imposter syndrome.
Never.
I'm just appalled by the double standard. Well, I had imposter syndrome once. It almost killed me. Once I got over it, I was like, fuck it. Once you're sitting there like, I may hang myself for my job, you're like,
wait, you're appalled at the double standard?
Well, I told a fascinating story that involved life or death. You told me about some old farts on a boat, and then it turned into something about snow.
Yeah, that was about 90 seconds.
But you thought that was
about 5 minutes.
You thought that was fascinating. So
no, I didn't necessarily. It's just about the time.
Okay,
it's just
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So before we shift gears, I do want to touch on one election story.
Geek of the Week
that I think stands the test of time. Have you guys heard about Angela Jones, this Democrat who's running?
Is she the
Geek of the Week?
Yeah.
I don't know if she's the geek of the week, but she definitely made some news. Our friend Craig Mauger at the Detroit News reported that her opponent, a fellow named Brad Paquette, who's a incumbent, criticized the American Federation of Teachers for endorsing Jones and calling her an online sex worker because before she got into politics, she had an OnlyFans page, which I think, if I'm reading Craig's story correctly, featured explicit images and videos of herself and her husband, and access was sold to consenting adults.
A very successful OnlyFans page, too. I think she had like 8,000 subscribers. It's pretty good.
Craig writes that at the peak on the website, she was in the top 0.02% of creators in the world, and she had amassed more than 8,000 subscribers. She operated under the name Angie Monique and made over $100,000 in her first few months. Sales were in 2022, but then sales dropped because somebody leaked it out. So I guess
this isn't the first time this has happened. I know down in Virginia there was a woman running, I think for state rep, and her OnlyFans was outed, but that was also with her husband. So I mean, there's nothing illegal going on here. It's just seemed to be a little bit of shaming, right?
No, well, I love the way her opponent did this. He's like, I'm not talking about her. I'm not going to criticize my opponent, but I am criticizing the American Federation of Teachers for endorsing her instead of him because it shows that they have poor judgment. So,
well, they probably didn't know.
I don't know, but it's a real nice backdoor way of slamming somebody.
Sure,
Saying like, hey, I'm not saying that this woman's a whore. I'm just saying that people endorsed her shouldn't endorse whores. Like, I think we got the point, Pally.
How much do you think this matters to like the electorate in general? Whomever it might be doing a OnlyFans page.
I think in this district, she's a dead woman walking. This is
I think she was anyway.
Red district, so she was never going to win, and that may be why she got the nomination because there wasn't that much competition.
Let's say
because they didn't vet the candidates properly. But
let's say she's running for governor or something, right? Do you think that matters to? I mean, it's always going to matter to some group. But do you think it would ever be enough to swing an election?
So this is a big gulf. But Tudor Dixon, some people criticized her because she was in sort of a racy
that's right, a movie, right?
Yeah, where she may or may not have exposed some skin, and there was kind of like, what are you doing in that kind of movie? And I don't think it hurt her at all. I think what really killed her was she went on Charlie's show and said that she would oppose abortion under all circumstances. Yeah. I mean, that was, as I told Charlie when I was on his show a couple weeks ago, I think that's why people don't want to engage with the media anymore, is because they say things that they shouldn't because they actually have to think on their feet.
Well,
and it hurts them and they regret it.
Little side note, I know of one pretty big candidate that didn't want to do his show simply because she fucked up in that interview with him. They didn't want to get got.
They didn't want to be the next.
I don't think they thought their candidate would do anything. I think it was more like a punishment of sorts, which is like I asked the question, she answered it.
Well, look at Kamala Harris goes on The View and says, "I really wouldn't do anything different than Biden."
Buried her. That was a bad answer.
These moments, they pivot so quickly; they're viral within hours. So, but I think to get back to your question, this wouldn't keep me from voting for her. I mean, she's a consenting adult. This is content. A
lot of people see it as immoral, though.
With her husband, I mean,
they still do. Just publicly doing it.
So I'm not here to endorse porn, but if I was a porn purveyor, I think there's a big difference between seeing two people who are in a respectful and loving relationship having intercourse than having Dave Portnoy spitting in somebody's mouth while he's hammering her from behind and yelling, "Call me daddy," or whatever.
But that was also consensual.
Yeah, I'm sure exactly. Yeah, that was an act of love. Okay, forget Dave Portnoy. He's a scumbag for many other reasons. But when you see, or when other people see porn, I don't
think he's that bad.
Yeah, you do.
He's a pretty.
I do.
He's a pretty amoral human being.
Why do you say that?
Because the way he conducts himself, I mean, he seems to have very little value beyond making money and trying to shock people for commerce.
There's a lot of small businesses that appreciated his help, though. During
That's great.
COVID. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't think he's. Look, I think he's kind of a dick, but I don't think he's like Satan incarnate like a lot of people do.
I didn't say that.
I know. I said a lot of
think
people.
He's a piece of shit, but he's done very well for himself.
But why? Just because he's loud?
Is he the geek?
Because he's disrespectful to women. He's gratuitously obnoxious. His whole brand is in your face nastiness, and it's all because either that's truly who he is, in which case shame on him, or that's who he has become to be successful, in which case,
shame on him.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really see anything mitigating here, but he's done very well for himself. And if that's what you believe in, then, I guess he can be a hero. And so he's done some nice things. That's great. I prefer people who do nice things without having to offset all the horrible things they've done. But I guess what I'm saying is this OnlyFans between consenting adults doesn't seem to me as problematic as I'm the cable guy and now we're having a double penetration moment with the plumber and you're a schoolgirl who played hooky. I mean, people are fascinated by sex. They're going to consume sexual content. And if it's between two people who really genuinely seem to care for each other, that seems to be a lot different than, hey, I'm just trying to pay my way through, law school.
So if you were to do an OnlyFans page, would the Smiths be the soundtrack?
I don't think there's enough bass. Unless it was November Spawned a Monster, which is really Morrissey. But no, there's not enough groove there, Sean.
By the way, is Morrissey okay? Did you see what happened to him this week?
No.
You didn't see what happened to your boy Morrissey?
Did he have a chicken nugget?
He was performing on stage. He was performing on stage. And he invited a woman to come up and sing with him or give a hug. And so she comes up there and it kind of opened the floodgates. Then next thing you know, some guy runs up and then a woman runs up and security there's not enough security for the number of people that were running up. And he ran away and that was the end of the concert because he was very sad.
Oh shit! I'm going to see him in Flint with Kevin later this month.
If it's still happening,
I hope so.
Who's Kevin?
He's a fan of the show, good friend.
Sorry, Kevin.
Appreciates the Smiths United. Usually has a fine little pre-party before the shows in Ferndale.
Sorry, Kevin.
What are you apologizing for?
Yeah, it's too bad you couldn't be on that boat going to Crete with Ernest Hemingway over here.
It's Crete to here, but that's okay.
Cyprus? Okay, so I got it backwards. I couldn't remember every detail of that riveting story, but I will transcribe it when I do the re-listen. Anyway, so Angela Jones, does this disqualify her from ever serving in office?
No,
absolutely not.
Okay,
no.
that's 3 votes for Angela.
I think it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I just want to see Mike's OnlyFans page.
Or is that 3 votes for Angie Monique?
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
A human lens, like we all have in our eyes, is only 2/5 of an inch wide and just 1/5 of an inch thick. Kind of sounds like me on OnlyFans. That's tiny. Yet without good functioning lenses,
it's the width that they come for.
It turns out it's only 2/5 of an inch. So
you make them laugh, right? And that brings them where they need to go.
Well, the idea is you make them laugh so their clothes fall off, not that your clothes fall off and you make them laugh. You've got it all backwards, Sean. That's probably what you learned on that boat with those 80-year-old sailors, because we all know about those sailors in Crete. Or is it Cyprus? Anyway.
I'm sorry that your suicide story wasn't as fun.
Yeah, that was the only part of the show Sean likes. Like, I wish that had a different ending.
Why'd that lady get in the way?
I'd like to see that skinny tie in the light fixture.
Don't project.
Sean, there's a Greek word for this. It's called pathos.
This is called projection.
Yet without good functioning lenses, if we can get back to Dr. Yaldo.
Yeah, how do you project?
Our eyesight becomes a daily vexing problem that won't go away. It's why millions of Americans replace their lenses every year, either for cataracts as part of the natural aging process, or as bifocal lens implants for younger people so they can see the small stuff clearly again in stunning HD along with everything else. Big, small, you can see it all. No bifocal glasses, no contacts, nothing but your eyeballs and the outside world coming to you brightly, clearly, and for life. Sorry, cough button got moved. If you've had it with reading glass and trying to see small print, let Dr. Yaldo bring things into clear view for you with, yes, the Clearview bifocal lens implant. Get a free evaluation from Michigan's most experienced eye surgeon at DrYaldoEyeCenter.com. That's YaldoEyeCenter.com. I call him Doc because he's my doctor. You can find a link to his website at our website. And if you go, there's a referral page. Please let them know that we sent you. And today, big day, election day. By the time you hear this, hopefully we'll know who won. And hopefully we'll all agree who won. But I heard from a list of the best celebrities that if Donald Trump wins today, it's the end of our nation. Then I heard from some other people that if Kamala Harris wins today, it's the end of our nation. Since it appears that you may be screwed either way, why not ask Luke Nowacki for help managing your investment portfolio as the country implodes like the last days of Rome, which is not that far from Crete, where Shawn spent some time with some old men on a boat. That doesn't sound creepy. What do you have to lose? After all, you can't lose more than 100%. And if you call Luke and Pinnacle Wealth Strategies, they will make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Mosaic Wealth. Inc. member FINRA-SIPC. Mosaic Wealth. Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent. Mosaic Wealth. Inc.
So I'm going to make a departure from past practice, and I'm going to make this all about me. When I ran for city council and lost in the general election by about 20 percentage points, a friend of our family who was not paying close attention to the race said, "What happened? It must be stolen. It must be rigged. They must have done something. We got to go check. Who's doing something about this?" I said, No, we just lost. We didn't win. We didn't get enough votes. We lost. And I knew when I went to our, victory party, the minute I got there, they had the absentee votes counted already, I think it was. And I looked at them and I said, "Oh, it's over." And then I just had to work the room and, greet everybody and thank everybody yeah. And then try and figure out what I was going to do when Treese and the girls found out, because they were going to be way more upset than I was. But the way these elections go, you kind of know who won and who lost. Sometimes you kind of know early, and sometimes you have to wait days. But we do end up knowing who the real winner was and who the real loser was. And we can file lawsuits and we can claim this and we can claim that. But here's the deal, folks. We're going to know who won and we're going to know who lost. And those of you who can't accept it, who because you like the candidate and the same with these friends of my family like me, couldn't accept it, somebody's going to lose, okay? That's the way politics works. But if you can't accept the bare naked facts, the irrefutable facts, then you are my geek of next week.
Hey guys!
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
Also, if you unfriend people, if you won't talk to people anymore, if you've decided I don't ever want to see them, we're not going to socialize, you're going to try and avoid them because come on, people. Come on. And if you want to get back together and you want to try and rebuild those bonds and socialize, may we suggest the Caju Cafe, which is the pride of the East Side, where you'll always find great eats, dope beats, feather bowling, and a convivial atmosphere regardless of what happens in this or any other election. You can start your week off the right way with Muscle Madness every Monday when the Caju dishes up all-you-can-eat mussels, and they have a great menu, so if you don't go for mussels, there's plenty of other great stuff on there. Wednesday, it's karaoke. Thursday, you can hear Carl Caraballo and the Wreckage. Fridays, it's Before the Flood, Dan Tennant and the Slouches. On Saturday, it's the Flashback Bash. And then you can end the week on a high note on Sunday with Nick Holder and Coney Soul. For more on Caju and the menu, go to cajucafe.com. And of course, just like Dr. Yaldo, just like Luke, The Casual Cafe will have a link on our website, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com. Now, you know we love it when you have a good song for us for room 7609. Even Shawn. Shawn likes it when you have a long song because of his constricted urethra.
This one has a long outro, though.
Width does matter.
Yeah.
And that tunnel's narrow. It's like a pass through a canyon back from the 1700s.
This is a great pick for today.
And of course, it comes from Mr. Magoo. So you knew it was going to be pretty clever. This is Politicians in My Eyes, a local band known as Death.
The first punk band ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Signed by Clive Davis, almost.
Kind of, yeah. Good point.
More on that from Magoo. After we survive this brush with death.
The number one biggest game is when they gain number fame. It's like a race at the top because they wanna be boss. They don't care who they step on as long as they get along. Politicians in my eyes. They could care less about you, they could care less about me. As long as they are put in the place that they want to be. They're always wearing small smiles like they go with the style. Politicians in my eyes. Always trying to be slick when they tell us that I'm responsible for sending young men to die. We have waited so long for someone to come along and correct our conduct wrong, but the wait's been too long. It's really sickening to see the way they lie on TV. Something that it can be a better man than you see. But when decisions come, that's when they have all the fun. Politicians in my eyes. They're always trying to convince you like we don't have the sense. They look just like kings and queens, but they do real stupid things. That they use to trust in them because you're their biggest friends. Politicians in my eyes. Reaching out, shaking hands, making friends and other plans. Some will rise, some will fall, some won't even answer calls. Look ahead, see them fly, see the twinkle in their eye. Politicians, tell me why can't you hear the people cry?
So in the early 70s in Detroit, Mr. Magoo writes, a band of brothers, literally and figuratively speaking, David, Bobby, and Dennis Hackney started out playing gospel, funk, and R&B. But all that quickly changed when David, the eldest of the three, went to see The Who perform at the now-defunct Pontiac Silverdome. I was there too, but I didn't see him. He proclaimed to his siblings, this is the kind of music we need to be playing, which is impressive given how poor the audio quality was in the Silverdome for that show. But the music was filtered through the black inner city perspective. The brothers were black. that delivered a message. It was loud, abrasive, in-your-face, proto-punk, but could also be melodic, making it well ahead of its time, so it didn't garner much attention. But then none other than Clive Davis of Columbia Records saw the band's potential and funded a recording session for the Hackneys at Detroit's other famed recording studio, United Sound Studios. Wasn't Clive Davis with Atlantic Records?
Yeah,
maybe? Okay.
yeah, big guy.
But and United Sound Studios, I think, is just across from Wayne State. I think they're getting ready to move that as... anyway, I digress, and it's a long story from Mr. Magoo, but every word is very, very compelling. A recording contract was in the offing except for one little hitch.
Great
the band's
song.
Name.
It is, yeah.
A band called Death just wasn't commercially viable. But the Hackneys refused to change it, citing artistic integrity. The meaning behind the name wasn't meant to be a dark, disturbing bad thing, but instead seeing it as a spiritual awakening, referencing their father's death. Now, Mark, it turns out, knows all this. He's very well acquainted
I imagine
with death.
Magoo and I watched the same documentary about a decade ago. The documentary is called The Band Called Death.
Okay.
Which I had never knew about this band until that doc.
Me neither. Particularly being a local band, you'd think they'd have a little more play around town. But Magoo says
you don't know everything.
Well,
wait, what?
I know.
He doesn't?
Shocking.
I know better than to get on a boat with a bunch of old sailors going to Greece. I know how that story ends.
Coming from Greece.
How long is that going to
The rest of the show.
I once hung out with the deranged girl. Then the recording contract offer was rescinded, but the brothers requested to retain the master recordings, and in a rare act of recording industry generosity, Clive Davis agreed. Then one of the brothers got married and moved to Vermont. That's also weird. The other brothers soon followed. That's also weird. But Lily White, New England, proved to be even more of an inhospitable place for the band and their rambunctious music. That's not so weird. So they went back to their roots, releasing 2 LPs of gospel rock under the name The Fourth Movement, which may go back to our conversation before the show, the double taper, but without any success. David decided to move back to Detroit, where he later died of lung cancer in 2000. So death follows this band. The surviving brothers then went on to form a reggae unit called Lamb's Bread and faded into further obscurity. Fast forward to the 90s. Bobby's son, Julian...
we're only in the 90s?
We're getting there. Don't cross Magoo, son.
I'm sorry, Magoo, but Mike's reading in his newscaster voice. Read it like a regular
He'll
person,
sick
please.
McBarker on your ass. Bobby's son, Julian, living in California...
We're worried about the
recording
inflection.
of some underground music with which had been making the rounds at some parties and gaining attention. He recognized the music. It was his father's and his uncle's long-forgotten band, Death.
Okay,
The rediscovery of the music
Thank you for the
and
triple
news of
colon.
the bands, which takes us to our earlier conversation. There's 3 stories from George Brett. They each involve a colon. That's a triple colon. He's a triple colon winner. The rediscovery of the
Was somebody
music.
talking about something before the show that was interesting?
What, bowel movements?
Is that what it was?
You seem to find it fascinating.
Or my grandma always called them BMs.
Yeah.
BMs.
Yeah, it's writing with a different kind of marker.
Dookie is the word that I used to hear.
On a papyrus that one would never share with the library.
BM is so... Bowel movement so clinical.
For something that feels great after it's done.
Yeah,
right?
stool sample. Mm-hmm.
Can we go from the do to Magoo?
Yeah, sorry.
The rediscovery of the music and
Forgot
news
you
of
were
the
talking.
band's story resulted. The hand goes up.
Are you still talking?
Okay.
It's a great song.
Yeah, it is. It's
Politicians in My
It's a
Eyes.
fabulous song.
You know, you love lyrics. Did you pay attention to the lyrics of that song?
I was kind of trying to get there, but
go ahead. Sorry.
It's ponderous, man. The rediscovery of the music and news of the band's story resulted in a deal with Drag City Records and an LP of the original master recordings entitled For All the World to See. It was finally released in 2009 for all the world to hear, along with the original album cover art and illustration depicting Detroit's pre-Renaissance waterfront.
I feel like we're in the middle of a Frontline episode.
Oh my God, do you ever stop talking?
I'm just reading the words on the page, son. And if you are a Patreon subscriber, you can see what sounds like a child. A highly acclaimed documentary, A Band Called Death, soon followed, which is what Mark was referencing earlier. It's a must-see for Detroit City music mavens interested in exploring the Detroit music roots. And though Politicians in My Eyes was written over 50 years ago, the message still rings true today.
You take forever to say nothing.
Always trying to be slick when they tell us the lies. They're responsible for sending young men to die. We've waited so long for someone to come along and correct our country's law, but the wait's been too long. And sadly...
God, to be your editor.
My God, are you still talking?
Mugu, they just don't understand.
What's going on?
They just don't understand.
No, I like the band. I'm fascinated.
Sadly, Magoo says...
Great song.
The wait continues. Peace out!
Wait, oh, you're done?
Magoo.
Oh.
That's it.
Okay, yeah. Got to get to a column.
Fucking ponderous, man. Ponderous. Fucking ponderous.
Well done, Magoo. I thought it was an excellent suggestion.
Great choice. Great
Perfect
song.
timing.
Very timely.
Everything about it was great.
Very timely. Well done.
Just keep your email shorter, whoever recommends the next song.
I thought it was great.
Or
It was.
the guy whose name's on the hoodie that apparently is the show could edit it down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Take a license.
The Black Pumas do a good cover of that song, too.
Do a
So
little.
I'll throw that
You
out.
have that power.
Okay. Fantastic. If you have a suggestion for Room 7609, please send us a
Email
song and a story to mlsolvedetroit@gmail.com. Also, if you want to send us some money, we will gratefully take that. Did you guys, did you hear what?
What, Penis Breath? Is he back?
No. We got it. He wants to come sit in studio. He's willing
I
to.
don't want that guy sitting in studio,
he's
that girl
willing to-
sitting in
He's
studio.
willing to pay handsomely, so we'll have to talk about this. But
Brush his teeth first?
well, we'll have to see. Did you guys ever read this from Dennis, who said, how can I get the bonus episodes without paying Patreon? I'd like to point out an audio difference between the Double E episode and this week's. This is a couple weeks ago. He made a generous donation through PayPal, which you can still do. You can also make a donation through Venmo by going to mlsolvedetroit.com. The Double E episode sounded hollow. This week, not so much. I can only surmise... I can't believe you didn't read this. It was ML's ego filling the basement up, even though he's still just little brother. Thanks for the laughs, ML, Mark, Shawn, and Erica. P.S. Erica, I'm a former CEP student and a chief for life. So Dennis sent us a handsome donation.
He thought there was a difference in the sound?
Between those two episodes. I thought so too.
Great. Really?
It sounded a little tinny.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Did you talk more than usual?
I wasn't on the first one.
Oh.
Sean, Dennis, please note Sean doesn't
I think
listen
I
to
know
comments.
why.
Okay. But anyways, you can make those donations.
Please note what? Please note what?
Please note Dennis's comments. And I'm telling Dennis, please note that Sean doesn't listen to what you have to say, even though there's a lot of wisdom in it.
No, I'm
Chief for
listening.
life.
I'm listening. Yeah, thank you, Dennis.
Of course, the way we love it when you support the show is by becoming a member of the Soulmates. The name that Erica came up with. I'm so tired, and it's early in the day, and it's going to be an all-nighter tonight, I know, too.
Well, and you were in Greece and trying not to kill yourself a couple of days ago, so that's...
Yeah, let me translate that story. Sean was rubbing grease on some 80-year-old guys in a boat, and he didn't know how to write about it. Best left unsaid. If you'd like to support the show and become a soulmate, you can make a donation to our Patreon link. $5 gets you access to every show. You can watch it. You get it before everybody else. And it gets you access to our monthly bonus episode, which is coming up soon. So please do that. You can also give us at different levels. The more you give, the more we really like it. But just $5 is enough. We really appreciate you being a part of our sponsorship team. And time for a little feedback. Josh, better known as Teebs, has transitioned from the Tigers to the Wings. Now, I think a lot of people were skeptical of his enthusiasm for the Tigers. It turns out that Teebs was a bit of a seer. Here's what he has to say. Behold! Don't let the Red Wings get hot. And he sent
his
this
sign.
fantastic new sign, which if you're a Patreon subscriber, if you remember the Soulmates, you can see it now.
I don't have it.
I emailed it to you.
You did?
Yeah.
I mean, he emailed it to me too, but I just don't know where it's at.
Oh, okay. Anyways,
you didn't email it to me.
Yeah, I did. I forwarded it to Mark Fellhauer.
No, you didn't.
Oh, you know what? Sorry. I forwarded it to Mark and Shawn on the Greek boat with the octogenarian perverts. Damn it. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Let me send it to the right email address. No, it says to Mark.
I never got it, though. Sorry.
You are Mark, right?
Yeah. Did you spell my name correctly?
I won't say your email address over the air, but it is the one that I always use. Anyway, we will get that to you soon so you can see that. And you can print it yourself and carry it to the game because we want to live by the Tao of Tebes. It's a good thing. Tom writes, Erica is the show. See you when she comes back. Later.
All right.
Okay. Thanks. Cool. She'll be back soon. She's working the day side at Channel 4, so she's not available on Tuesday, but she will be back soon because she is going to be the queen of the night, the queen of darkness, covering news after dark for Channel 4. So a role that Mara McDonald filled for many years so admirably. There'll be a good reason to tune in to Channel 4 at 11 o'clock now because you will see Erica bringing the big news. Hey, here comes the graphic. Look at that. Don't let the wings get hot. That's a warning from Tebes. Oh, hey, Tom's back. I thought he was going to be back unless Erica's on the show.
Wait,
okay.
Did somebody say Erica is the show?
Yes.
There were
3 minutes.
Is there a time delay on the other side of the basement? What's going on here?
They're right, though. They're right. She is. It's okay.
Well, here's what Tom
I think you're the show.
Here's what Tom says. I would never give you $5 any more than I would subscribe to any obviously biased newspapers. Additionally, I could care less about any endorsements from newspapers or from celebrities. You are biased as well in politics and college sports teams, which colleges, in my opinion, are indoctrination centers. A good example of biased fake news is the 51 Intels calling a laptop Russian interference or COVID. Whitmer, anyone? I know of an autistic gentleman who votes. Anyone who votes because of other opinions should not be allowed to vote. If you're not smart enough to make an informed decision, then WTF. Your show is sometimes entertaining, but not that much. And yes, I'd like to supersize my fries. Whew.
I like that he said sometimes entertaining. I thought that was a win for us.
There's Sean, always looking for the positive.
That was nice. Thank you.
Apparently that sometimes is when Erica's here. I imagine when Erica's not here, Tom is outside her bedroom window, fogging up the window.
Hey, you don't know that.
I think Tom's pretty creepy.
You're disparaging.
At least that's what 51 Intelligence.
Thanks for keeping listening, even though we're only sometimes amusing, Tom. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Next week will be amusing. Kim writes in, hi, Mark.
No, thank you.
And ML. No, Sean.
Oh.
I certainly would not bet on it, but if there are any big Republican upsets today, example, Trump, Rogers, congressional flips, Republicans taking back the majority of the legislature.
Wait, Trump would be an upset?
He's... Harris is leading in polls in Michigan, we're told, although they're all within the margin of error. And I think,
if he won Michigan, sure.
I think the latest Free Press poll shows
so we're
them
talking
tied.
Michigan, not nationally. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she doesn't say, but she's saying she seems to think that Trump would be a big upset, but she is referring to Michigan races, so I'm going to assume she means
thank you
winning the state of Michigan. She says,
good job
upsets,
there. Good job there. Keep skipping.
Well, the problem is somebody who spends a lot of time below deck, on the poop deck, if you will, keeps interrupting me. So if you don't mind, Rear Admiral, let me get this done.
The poop deck.
Okay. If there are any big upsets today, isn't that remarkable in a swing state where the Democratic Party apparatus controls pretty much everything, plus has 3 times the campaign spending? MLive, Detroit Free Press, Detroit News, Michigan Radio, and WDET, every local TV affiliate, Whitmer, Nessel, Benson, Wayne County Machine, State House and Senate, and unions are all dominated by the left. There's not one conservative newsroom in the state. Would a big upset trigger any soul searching by you and the brass at Freep or any other newsrooms here? As in, maybe you're a little out of touch with the masses and reader base? Take care. Kim, Independent. Well, I would say there are some conservative newsrooms in the state, starting with the Detroit News.
Absolutely.
And the Mackinac Center for Public Policy, which also has, they created a news operation in honor of the late Frank Beckman, my friend who would have celebrated his birthday last month and probably should have because he went too soon. Free Press doesn't endorse anybody. The reporters are objective. We report what we find. If you think that is bias, I don't know what to tell you. Perhaps you don't like the facts, but there is a lot of big money being spent in Michigan by businesses and corporations. When you look at the biggest and the most well-funded PACs in this state, they tend to be the ones run by Republicans like Lee Chatfield's multiple cash cows. And Rick Snyder, the former governor, has been raising tons of money strictly to try and flip the Michigan House from blue to red. And of course, when you talk about big funders, there's the DeVos family that pours millions of dollars. Ron Weiser put multiple millions of dollars into the Republican Party when he was the chairman. So to suggest...
That's why we're a swing state, right, Mike?
Yeah. When you suggest that all the money's on one side, generally the money is mainly on the Republican side because they've been in the majority for so long. That's where the contributions go. The dough goes where the power is because green is the only color that really matters in politics. But would I be surprised if any of those people win? Absolutely not. No. The Democrats have like a 2-seat majority in the House. Rogers and Slotkin, according to the Free Press's own polling. I'm not a big believer in polls, by the way, but they're a toss-up. Trump and Kamala Harris, a toss-up. Slotkin, Rogers, I guess we just addressed that. That's a toss-up. Tom Barrett, Hertel, John James, Carl Marlinga. This state is up for grabs, and you know what? That's why all the eyes of the world are on us, and that's why this is one of the great states, because you have got to earn it in Michigan. You've got to convince us that you're the best, because Michiganders, we do keep an open mind, and we do have a lot of good independents here, like Kim and like me.
And Kim, I do want to tack on to that because you mentioned Michigan radio, I think, in DET, which is NPR, right? Isn't DET public radio?
That's the U of M's NPR station and Wayne State's NPR station.
But if you look at, WJR, very conservative. Those are very, very conservative. And most talk radio usually is more conservative. So those voices are out there.
Yeah, and in terms of, objective reporters, Jackie Page, who's one of the main anchors at WWJ, if you follow her on Twitter, very conservative, and that's fine. She's entitled to her viewpoint.
The voices are out there.
Yeah.
Just depends where you look, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's fine, whatever.
So it's out there. But yeah, big upsets, that's why we got to watch, folks. That's why you should keep your eyes on freep.com, because we'll have those election results. We'll tell you who won. We'll tell you why they won.
Hey, can I ask a question about that?
Oh, yeah.
How do they do the returns? Like who, because I'm sure the news, the Freep, and the TV stations all have their websites with the returns. Do they all come from one central area?
So
I would think they would, right? Whoever's counting it. So they disperse it to all of them?
So so there's 83 counties in Michigan, which means there's literally thousands of municipalities in the state of Michigan. And each one of them has their own clerk and does their own counting, and they report them in a different way. But most of the county websites, the big ones, Oakland, Macomb, Wayne, you can go there and see what their election results are, but they can't post 100% of precincts reporting until those smaller municipalities feed those in. Some of them will get them over a modem, a secure modem, and others, like in Macomb County, because they don't use the electronic reporting, the local clerks will take a flash drive to the Macomb County Clerk's office and say, here's our results, put them into your computer. Really? And the Macomb County Clerk, Tony Forlini, will volunteer to have his clerk go out to the municipalities and say, hey, can I get your flash drive so I can bring the results back so we can get them back faster? So the clerks in the county level are dependent on what the local clerks do. They don't really count any votes. They count the votes that the local clerks count. And when they report them, we usually pull them off of their website. And of course, the Detroit City Clerk, we will have somebody watching that because that's the biggest one in the city. But Warren did not pre-process absentee ballots. The clerk in Warren decided not to do that.
Story, yeah.
So that's up to 30,000 absentee ballots that they're going to try and handle.
So if there's a delay in this state,
deadline.
It's most likely Warren instead of Wayne County this time, like usual.
Yeah, my bet for the big delays are going to be Warren and Detroit, although our colleagues at the Free Press, Clara Hendrickson, Paul Egan, Todd Spangler, Arpin Lobo, our politics editor, Emily Lawler, the whole team is working. They do a fantastic job. And they're reporting that there are so many absentee ballots that have been pre-processed in Detroit that even with a surge on Election Day, because once your ballot gets to the post office and the post office gets to the clerk at 8 o'clock, it can be counted. There's always late, last-minute votes. Even with the big surge, they may be able to handle it. So this is going to be a very different election.
Talking to LaDuff, because he was working down there processing early voting and mail-in votes too. So he's very confident in it.
Well,
in the count and it being, quicker than people might think it would be.
Yeah, and Charlie, who did the genius move to work as a poll worker in 2020 so he could see firsthand how the ballots were processed in Detroit, Charlie tends to lean a little more Tucker Carlson and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. these days than AOC and Rashida Tlaib. He reported in 2020, when everybody was pounding on the glass and yelling, "Stop the steal," that he saw nothing unusual. And believe me, if there's one guy who's going to start screaming about something before anybody else, it's Charles Xavier LaDuff IV. I made up the last part. Royal. Oh, Charles Royal.
Yeah, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Charles Royal LaDuff. And if Charlie didn't see it, I'm telling you, folks, it didn't happen because this dude doesn't miss many tricks. And he's working again. And he told Mark, so I'll let Mark tell you so you don't get it third hand, that he's seen nothing to trouble you. Good people.
I mean, he always has questions. But yeah, so far, processing it, okay.
Did you guys see this story?
Oh, here we go.
Did you guys see this story? Georgetown University's School of Public Policy is offering on this day for its students in that department the chance to play Legos and drink milk and cookies if they are stressed out about the election.
Fucking kidding me?
And that may be a slight exaggeration, but
Well, you saw what happened to Seinfeld, right? Did you hear Jerry Seinfeld went off on?
Oh, when he was doing the commencement speech?
No. There's a school. His kids went to this school, $65,000 a year, school in Manhattan in New York, and they are
what level? What high school or something?
I believe it is almost K through 12. That's how I took it, or at least junior high and high school, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I should probably look it up, but I know his kids graduated from one kid graduated from there. The other, he said he pulled them because of stuff like this. And what it is tomorrow they don't have to go to school. No questions asked if they're affected by the election.
I've seen that. I've seen that headline,
which is to me insane because that's not the real world. You have to keep moving forward, no matter who. You have to accept the results, like ML was just saying, and live your life and move forward. But not only that, you're going to a school where tuition's $65,000. No matter who's president, I think you'll be okay. I just was blown away by that.
I understand Seinfeld's kids are going to be a little more subject to scrutiny than other kids. But how does a guy who went to Nassau Community College send his kids to a place where it's $65,000 a year for like elementary school? That's nuts to me.
Well, I don't know. Once again, I don't know if it's elementary or what.
Well, even high school. But that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at Cranbrook. People send kids to Cranbrook all the time.
That's a private school.
Well, this is a private school too.
No, sorry, that's my M&M thing. You know, I know something about you. You went to Cranbrook. That's a private school.
Oh, okay. I didn't get the reference.
Yeah, where did Cyrus go?
He's waiting for you to finish with the story about Legos.
No, I just wanted to.
Cyrus was ready to go. He's like, oh no, let me hear this fascinating story from Georgetown.
About Legos and milk and cookies. Yeah, no, Mark got excited.
That can't be real. Is that real?
I don't know if it's real or not.
Better not be real.
It could just be.
I'm sure it is.
It could be PSYOP stuff, you know.
I don't know. But
here's what you're delving into, PSYOP stuff?
Yeah. Here's the deal, folks. By the time you hear
see all those Haitians that voted in multiple places?
Oh, boy.
Do you know what I'm talking about? The fake video that the Russians made?
Oh, was that the one where they came out to vote because they're going to get a free buffet of cats and dogs?
No, I mean, it was a video, pretty poorly produced video, where they're like, we're new to this country. We just registered to vote in Gwinnett County, and we're going to go to Fulton County.
It's all
people
fake.
believe that stuff, though. Even when you tell them it's fake, they're still going to believe it.
Yeah,
so
no,
it's just going to keep coming.
It's amazing. Cyrus would be amazed, too.
I think Sean's sending a very passive-aggressive message to you.
Here's my boldest prediction of the day that I think will stand up throughout the week. Whoever wins is going to be an American, and whoever loses is an American, and we're all Americans. So let's pull together and get past this, whoever your candidate was, because that's what's important. And if you don't believe me, just see what they did to Cyrus. They took him out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
His opinion means a lot to you, doesn't it?
No.
I push people beyond what's expected of them. I believe that is an absolute necessity.
You won't be able to give me the time of day because you have a
press conference to cover.
That's exactly my point.
You are a worthless, friendless piece of shit whose mommy left daddy.
and who is now weeping and slobbering all over my
podcast
like a 9-year-old girl. Start practicing harder.
Windsor.